Bonar. John, he is our Chief Investment Advisor. He right now is in Russia, specifically Vladivostok, and he'll tell you a little more about who he is, what he does, and a little more background information.
Hello, people. Pleasure to be talking to you tonight. Well, it's tonight my time. It's morning your time, I think, for most of you. But to give you some background, I've spent the best part of 50 years working with emerging and frontier markets, starting with Libya in 1969 and going all the way through to Russia, where the last 25 years has been working with Russia, including 14 years living in the country. I left in 2009 and now I'm back. Mostly I lived in Moscow and the towns around Moscow. I was a commuter. I've traveled throughout Russia, and part of my time was a stint as the UK representative on the governing board of the Association of European Business in Russia. That brought me into contact with government ministers and officials, many of whom are still in post around Russia. I'm a member of the Russo-British Chamber of Commerce and the British Institute of Directors. I was formerly deputy chairman of the Westminster Russia Forum, and I founded the UK Friends of Crimea. That's sort of my official background and so on. But why Russia? I mean, Russia's beset by sanctions, and coupled with falling oil prices over the last several years, the dollar is now worth 62 rubles. 10 years ago, it would only buy 20 rubles to the US dollar. In terms of territory, Russia is the world's largest country. 17,125 200 square kilometers. That's 6,612 100 square miles, spreading from the borders of Poland in the west to Alaska, Japan, and China in the east. There are 11 time zones between Kaliningrad in the west and Kamchatka in the east. Russia is rich in resources. It's the world's second largest oil producer, the largest holder of gas reserves, and immense coal, forest, diamond, gold, and titanium resources, which are just the top of mind wealth the country possesses. Today, land in Vladivostok, the regional capital, is selling at $1,500 an acre, but somewhat lower in the countryside. Good value. Russia has a trade surplus of 15 million today, the biggest in 3.5 years. Government debt is only 12.6% of GDP. Foreign exchange reserves are the 5th in the world at $459 billion. That's more than 3.5 times greater than the USA foreign exchange reserve. Overall, the economy is growing by 1.3% in Q1 this year, and inflation is falling. The interest rate is 7.5%, and the minimum wage is $180 a month. Now, the downside is that Russia has a low productivity rate. There has been a history of corruption in the Far East, but a new team, including a new governor, a new Minister of Far East Development, both directly appointed by President Vladimir Putin, should go some way to rooting this out. There's a deputy governor with a business background, and the free port of Vladivostok has wide remit and generous tax exemptions that we aim to be party to. Vladivostok is crypto-friendly, and 2 Russian federal agencies have been created here. A crypto advisory agency is based in the Vladivostok State University of Economics and Service, and a crypto investigative agency to detect fraud has also started operations. The potential for the region is huge in industrial development, agribusiness, and tourism. Visitors from South Korea grew 18% in 2017, but are set to grow by 30% over 2018. My role will be spreading the positive news about Relex, how it bridges the gap for funding with small, medium-sized companies and entrepreneurs. And I'll also be mentoring business plan development, which will meet Relex's strict criteria for acceptance to our platform. I now invite questions. What I can promise is that even if I do not have all the answers, since I only arrived here at the end of last week, I will get the answers to all relative questions tomorrow. I have meetings scheduled with the assistant to the deputy governor, who himself is on a mission to China, the head of the regional investment agency, and the regional head of Opora Russia. Opora Russia's activity is aimed at resolving the most pressing issues faced by Russian entrepreneurs and their day-to-day business practices in a wide range of areas: legal protection, attracting financing, obtaining government support, establishing business contacts within the business community, and many others. So here I am. I'm 2 hours drive from China and 2 hours flight time from Osaka in Japan and Seoul in South Korea. So let's have the questions.
Great. Okay. So one of the things that we wanted to start off with, we've heard about this sandbox. Well, what is this sandbox and how can it help us?
Well, it's more a question of we're helping the Russian government. The Central Bank of Russia thought that following the presentations given by Keith in Yalta and Herede in Yalta, they thought that we were sufficiently ethical and compliant friendly that we could contribute in the development of the Central Bank of Russia's own developing regulations. We could help them develop the regulations, and they could use us in their tentative first steps in crypto management and crypto dealing.
Great. So speaking of the regulations, how is the regulatory process different when compared to either the United States or the EU?
I haven't got the details on that, and maybe Keith or Herede would be best positioned to answer that, because I'm not up to speed on all the regulations around the world governing crypto.
All right, we have a couple other questions coming in from the Telegram now. Michael wants to know, will the current political climate affect Relex's ability to gain Russian acceptance being an American company?
No, I don't think they have. They will deal on an individual basis with everybody. And, you know, the only thing that we are curbed on is we cannot, obviously from the American government's point of view, we cannot go fundraising for Crimea. That's a no-no.
Okay, we have a question from Jamie. I'm not sure if you can answer this, John, but he asked, where do you see Relex expanding to next after Russia?
Well, the automatic thing from Russia would be around the neighboring stands, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and so on. And in fact, last week I met a guy from a Kyrgyzstan property developer, and I gave him the links so he could look at Relex as possibly being interested in helping him fund financing. He was in Moscow running a presentation on some of his elite buildings in Bishkek, the capital of Kyrgyzstan, and he was targeting expatriate Kyrgyz living and working in Moscow.
Excellent. So JC wants to know, what does your project pipeline look like, yours specifically?
It looks good. I mean, I had meetings in Moscow with a guy who's on I don't know. He's not the developer, but he would be a crucial element in developing out of center tourism in Borovsk, a town in the northern Kaluga, the northern part of Kaluga region. It's only 105 kilometers south of Moscow, so it's within striking distance. An hour and a half on the electric train, and so on. So that's one project that we're looking at. Another one that is fairly significant, I would say, is to develop in this region, the Far East, where we are so close to the Japanese and Korean golf mad publics. There is no golf, has been no golf course here. So we're actively going to be looking at developing a championship golf course, and we're in collusion on that with Sandy Lyle, the twice world champion golfer, and Ross McPherson, the renowned golf course designer. And we'd be looking at putting together a golf course, a conference hotel, and residential chalets, villas around the golf course, and so on. Pretty much like the course that Sandy and Scott McPherson developed in Kerswell, in the central part of Scotland, between Glasgow and Edinburgh.
Excellent.
So that's just a taster of the kind of projects that we're looking at.
It sounds like we have a lot of different things that we're looking at.
Yeah. But I've got a good team working. I've got a good team working with me, both here and back in the UK.
Excellent. So we know that your goal is 150 million assets under management in Russia. Are you confident that Relex could go beyond this goal, and how will you attempt to achieve this goal?
The only way to achieve it is by having well-documented, well-prepared business plans that meet the criteria of Relex for posting on their platform. And in the present situation, to keep the components of the project self-contained and all within a budget of 50 million. So, for example, the golf course, which could well reach 150 million on its own, would consist of 50 million allocated for the land and golf course development, 50 million for the hotel, conference center, spa facility, and so on, and 50 million for the housing element.
JC wants to know, what is your target ROI for projects, and what's the minimum acceptable?
We've been looking at achieving a return on investment similar to that Relex is already bringing in to investors from Southeast Asia. So we'll be looking at a minimum of 10% per annum.
Great. Lucy Liu wants to know, with the recent addition of Paul Goncharov, what skills does he bring that will help Relex?
Sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Yes, with the recent addition of Paul Goncharov to the team, what skills does he bring that will help with Relex?
Paul has been here for over 20 years. He's a native New Yorker, born and raised, and he's extremely well connected within the Russian firmament and can help us with introductions, meetings, presentations, and so on.
Okay, going through a couple of these questions. One second. What is the general sentiment towards crypto and blockchain in Russia? And do you see any regulatory issues in the future? This is from Test.
Okay, the general attitude towards crypto in Russia is positive. They've recently added a new channel on cable called the Crypto Channel, and that's pretty good. I mean, you've got a regular TV channel, not a program, a channel devoted to crypto on Russian TV. Now, I think that's pretty powerful. I think it's also a powerful statement that everybody's getting on board with crypto. I think they toing and froing between different parties within the central bank, different parties within the finance ministry, and so on. I think these have all been ironed out now, and we're going to have a fairly steady progression. And I think it will be led by the crypto agencies that I've said the government has set up. 2 of them here in Vladivostok. There's also a huge mining operation being planned by a Hong Kong investor on an island off the coast of Vladivostok city, and so on. So yes, everybody's getting ready for a boom in crypto, and Relex fits well into that because, I mean, all you got to do is look at last week's statement by Peter Lee, our U.S. Director of Operations, who lambasted the fraudulent activities that are on the periphery of crypto and so on. And I think that stands us in good stead with the Russians, who obviously are frankly, don't want anything to do with anything that could be fraudulent or a scheme that is dump and pump.
So Lucy Liu wants to know, you mentioned that you are 2 hours from China and Japan and also Korea. Can you talk more about this strategic location?
Yeah, I mean, I can get in a bus, for that matter, and end up in northeast China, in the town called Sufenhai, which is really geared towards Russia. A 2-hour flight would take me to Osaka or Seoul.
Excellent. Yeah, go ahead.
There's 420 million. There's a population within 1 hour's flight of Vladivostok of 420 million. We got a big market, and the point is not to confuse a Russian market with a potential market of any development that is done here with tourism or exports as their backbone.
John, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the Russia Focus magazine. Yeah,
we launched this in London at the Institute of Directors at 116 Pall Mall, the heart of British business, if you like, on the 14th of May. and it's already gaining a lot of traction and a lot of respect. Basically, the motto is to broaden the debate on today's Russia, because it's too Russophobic, in my opinion. And but that's, you know, and it allows us to talk about subjects close to our heart. Okay, gentlemen and ladies. What can I say? I'm building a team that will take over the day-to-day running of the magazine. The next issue will be in September, and we'll, you know, I'll remain publisher, but somebody else will be the editor, and somebody else will be the commercial director, and so on. So, yeah, that's the way that's developing. Its main distribution channel is through online, and you can reach it through the www.yestobusiness.com website. Okay, is that?
Yep, that's great. Yeah, one of the reasons I brought that up was because
68 pages, so I'm not going to go through it page by page with you here. We've got correspondence, we've got contributors, and you know, I'm really pleased that the cover story of this issue takes on who's really behind the Skripal-Novichok saga. What do they have to gain? Where might this lead? And that's written by Professor Richard Sakwa, a venerable professor of Russian and European politics at the University of Kent in England.
Right, and one of the reasons I brought this up is because blockchain, cryptocurrency, and Relex also make appearances in this issue.
Absolutely. Here we are with, you know, we've got, and we've got Vladivostok blossoms as window to the east, following up on Russia embraces blockchain and cryptocurrency. So yeah, we do what you say.
So JC has asked us, what do you see as the biggest risks or hurdles that need to be overcome before the first project can be initiated?
Getting the government in line, cooperating with us, because they've never done it before, and we're pushing them in areas that they may not be experienced enough to understand. So there's a lot of education going to be involved in bringing them on board.
And when do you think that the first project could potentially start?
Oh, I would say 3 months.
That's excellent. That's very soon.
Launch it on the platform in 3 months' time. That will be after we've had approvals from the development and investment agencies here, and it will be after we've got a registered entity that will be handling it. Then 3 months launch on the platform and 3 months fundraising. But before it will go on the platform, there will be the developer informal conference with the Relex community, where there will be toing and froing and discussions, just like there was a couple of weeks ago with the new developer in Vietnam. And once we get a go-ahead from the community, then it will go formal. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, I think so. So one of our users is interested in knowing about the marketing tools that you want to use. Could you speak a little bit on those marketing tools?
I'm not running the marketing operation. I think that's more questions for Frank and JT.
For myself, yeah. Yeah. So we'll address that in a different point. Going through a couple of these questions here, just making sure. Let's see.
Lucy Lou is typing, I see.
let's see. Derek was wondering, is Relex familiar to anyone that you've spoken to in Russia yet?
Only from people that I have promoted it to and sent them information on it. But there's growing understanding and acceptance.
Great, okay. I don't see any other questions yet, but I'm going to give one more minute for anyone who wants to ask any final questions.
Lucy, Lou, and Jay look like they're coming up with something.
So Lucy Lou asked, hi John, can you describe your history with the team and why you joined Relex?
My history with the team, well, I go back to 2009 with Keith, and we both respect each other's abilities and so on. And Keith brought me in fairly early on last year to the team. And although both of us had been working on other projects together, that in fact have ended up inside the Relex umbrella. So that's my background there.
Okay, we have a follow-up question from John B. I know this is something that you've addressed a little bit, but maybe you can go into a little more detail. But he wants to know, what is the political attitude around decentralized currency in Russia, and how does that impact Relex? So I guess not so much about just blockchain companies, but about decentralized currency, maybe like Bitcoin.
Well, there's growing acceptance. I mean, for example, last November, two of the biggest banks, the biggest bank in Russia, Sberbank, and another large bank, Alpha, which is privately owned. Sberbank is owned by the government. Alpha Bank, which is privately owned, and with Sberbank, enacted the first bank-to-bank blockchain transaction done in Russia. And both of them are very enthusiastic about the prospects for blockchain. Does that cover it? Or?
Yeah, I think it does. We have two people who are typing right now. We'll just see if they have questions. I know it's late for you, John, so let's see if we can get some questions here. Okay, here we go. So Tokyo Myers wants to know, where do you see Relex in 5 years' time within Russia and internationally? And do you believe that Relex could be a major game changer for the development industry?
Well, I think, first of all, that Relex stands apart from most other cryptocurrencies, which are very largely, they're not building assets. They're, the currency in itself is the asset that people are speculating on. The best example of that is Bitcoin. But interestingly, in London, I had discussions with a number of bankers, and we're agreed that with the loss of gold backing, since we dumped the gold standard for currencies, even the US dollar and the British pound could well be considered cryptocurrencies in a sense, in that they're backed by, you have to take them on trust, which is what we're asking people to do in the crypto world. But Relex is moving faster than that because we're working on developing assets. So the Relex token will be backed by bricks and mortar, whereas so many others out there will be backed by the signature or the word of their founders.
Great, thank you, John. John, do you have anything else that you'd like to add at the end here?
I'd like to thank everybody for sticking with Relex and being on board, because we're going to do the best we can for you.
Thank you, John, for your time. Thank you, everyone here, for attending today. We appreciate it. And as you know, we'll continue to be in touch. Thanks, everyone.